see people very, very anxious. I see young people, children, also worried and anxious today. Again, I don't think I'd ever heard of an educational psychologist when I was at school. And today I hear of educational psychologists at schools. So that's telling me a story. And so young and old, everybody seems to be worried and anxious. And again, I see that it's not an external problem. Maybe there's a situation where really there is cause for concern. For example, it may be that I don't have enough money. Maybe it's possible that I've been given a diagnosis of an illness and it could be quite threatening. Or maybe somebody I love very much who's close to me has been given that diagnosis. So there are very real causes for anxiety sometimes. But also, have you noticed that sometimes there are things that are quite stable, quite okay, but there's the habit of worrying. And a person gets anxious when there's really no need to be anxious at all. I'm not even talking about the extreme situations of phobias, because that is something which is a medical issue and can be dealt with separately, but just day-to-day living and worried about this, that and the other. You know, there was a survey done some time ago, and this was by one of the British national papers, daily papers, and they asked people how often was it that the cause of their worry became a reality, and how often was that the cause of their worry really had no basis at all. And they discovered later that there was no basis, they were just worrying. And about 80% of the time, the things that we are worried about actually never happen. So that's also a fact of life. But just thinking about where people really have a cause for anxiety. Maybe I don't have enough money. Is it possible for me to think about money in a different way? And instead of thinking not having enough, I start thinking, well, where is it I can start saving? And probably there are things that I can simplify in my life to a certain extent, maybe not a great extent, a certain extent. Maybe is it possible for me to get a second job? And maybe it's not. I understand that also. But just allowing the mind not to get stuck into just worrying, I can't, what's going to happen, to start thinking a little bit differently, to start moving the mind into a space that's a little bit more creative, so that I allow myself the possibility of hope for the future. Because so often with worry and anxiety comes depression, in which I lose hope for the future. And human life without hope is really no life at all. But if I can shift my thinking and come back to a state in which I can be a little bit more creative, there can be hope. I know, for example, when people have been told about illness, I've seen two reactions. Again, a person lose hope and become very anxious, but other people, and it's not one or two, it's been several individuals that I've seen, and they look at it differently. They look at it as an opportunity to change the course of their life, where they've been busy, and haven't had time for family, haven't had time for the self. Now they discover that it's now possible. They're given permission to be able to shift their lifestyle and make time for the self and family. And once they start doing that, again, the quality of life begins to improve. And of course, again, it's a known medical fact that if you have faith and hope, you're more likely to be able to reverse the illness, whatever it may be. And if you lose hope and say, woe is me, how sad, how bad, who can help you? Even the doctors can't help you. And so my way of thinking, my pattern of thinking is something that I can take charge of, which is something that we've never appreciated usually. We think that, the way I'm thinking is the way I am, and that's how it's always going to be. But spirituality is saying, I am the master of my own mind. I am the master of my own thoughts, and I can move my thoughts from a dark place to a place of light. I can begin to shift my own thinking and make it different.